Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we have a story straight from the rugged hills of Mpumalanga, where law enforcement has been turning up the heat on illegal mining activities. Over the weekend, a police operation under the banner of Operation Vola Mgodi led to the arrest of 7 suspects in the Pilgrim's Rest area. The suspects range in age from just 15 years old to 43. Now, already that detail alone tells you something about the scale of desperation and the network behind illegal mining. When you have people barely out of childhood caught up in the same dragnet as middle-aged adults, it shows you that illegal mining is not just a side hustle. It's a family business, a community business, and in many ways, a shadow economy that competes with the state. The suspects are now facing charges of contravening the Immigration Act, which suggests that many of them may not even be South African citizens. They are expected to appear before the Pilgrim's Rest periodical court. Meanwhile, during the sweep, officers discovered abandoned mining equipment that had been left behind in the rush to escape. And here is where the story really begins to open up, because if you look deeper, abandoned equipment is not just the sign of a few men running away. It's evidence of an entire underground industry with access to machinery, transport, and capital. These are not people armed with a shovel and a dream. We are talking about pumps, compressors, generators, and often even firearms in other cases. So what exactly is Operation Vola Mgodi? For those who may not know, this is a multidisciplinary effort involving the police, specialized units, and sometimes even the military, aimed at clamping down on illegal mining across the country. The word Mgodi itself literally refers to a hole or a pit, which is what illegal miners leave behind across vast stretches of land. And if you have driven through certain parts of Mpumalanga or Gauteng, you will have seen these scarred landscapes where once there were hillsides or farms, now there are craters big enough to swallow a double-decker bus. Illegal mining is often treated as a nuisance crime in conversation, but the truth is it has serious implications for South Africa. It drains billions from the economy, destabilizes communities, and fuels organized crime syndicates. These syndicates are not small players. They are connected to cross-border smuggling routes, they are linked to weapons trafficking, and sometimes even money laundering. So when police in Pilgrim's Rest catch 7 suspects, you can be sure they are scratching only the surface of a much deeper network. Let's take a moment to consider the location itself. Pilgrim's Rest is not just any small town. It's a historic mining settlement, tied to the gold rush of the late 1800s. Tourists usually come here to admire the preserved buildings, the museums, and that old gold diggers atmosphere. But underneath that tourist charm is a harsh reality: the land still holds minerals, and the temptation for zama-zamas, the informal or illegal miners, remains as strong as ever. In fact, some locals joke that Pilgrim's Rest has never actually rested. It has always been a site of digging, legal or illegal. Now here is the sensitive part. The youngest suspect in this case is 15. That is not just a number on a police docket. That is a child who should be in school, who should be worrying about maths homework and soccer practice, not ducking into abandoned mine shafts with a spade and a torch. And when young people are being recruited into illegal mining, it raises a huge question: where are the social services, the schools, the economic opportunities? It is easy to arrest a 15-year-old, but harder to explain why a teenager feels his or her only hope is to risk death underground. Let's not forget, illegal mining is incredibly dangerous. Mines collapse. Toxic gases seep through the tunnels. People die in silence. Families never get closure. And sometimes these deaths never even make the headlines because the victims are undocumented or unregistered. For many communities, it is a grim cycle. Poverty forces people underground, crime syndicates profit, and law enforcement tries to play catch-up. The Immigration Act angle is also important. Many zama-zamas are migrants from neighboring countries such as Lesotho, Zimbabwe, or Mozambique. They cross the border searching for work, but end up entangled in these mining networks. Politically, this feeds into heated debates about immigration, border control, and policing. The arrests in Pilgrim's Rest might look like a simple victory for the police, but they also stir up tensions in communities already worried about jobs, services, and crime. Now, let's bring in a little humor here because South Africans often use humor to cope with heavy issues. If you know anything about Pilgrim's Rest, you'll know it's one of those towns where, if you blink, you've already driven past. So you can imagine the surprise of locals when a whole operation suddenly lands in their quiet historic streets, chasing zama-zamas into the bush. Some villagers probably thought it was a film shoot. And to be fair, with the way things are going in this country, it sometimes feels like we're all extras in a never-ending action movie called South Africa, the sequel nobody asked for. But jokes aside, this is serious business. Operation Vola Amgodi is not just about catching a few miners. It is also a test of the state's ability to reclaim control of South Africa's resources. Remember, the country is in desperate need of revenue. Load shedding has cost the economy billions, unemployment remains stubbornly high, and international investors want signs that the rule of law is being upheld. If the government cannot secure its mines, what does that say about its ability to secure the rest of the economy? The arrest of these 7 suspects is one headline. But the real story lies in whether the state has the stamina to keep pushing. Will they prosecute the masterminds behind these operations? Or will they continue to arrest the foot soldiers while the syndicate bosses drive luxury cars in Johannesburg and Durban? That's the question we should all be asking. So, as we watch this story unfold, let's also reflect on the bigger picture. Illegal mining is not just about gold or platinum. It is about inequality, about broken borders, about neglected towns, and about young people drawn into danger because they see no other path. What do you think, though? Should South Africa double down with harsher policing, or should the government invest more in creating legal pathways for work and livelihoods that can steer people away from zama-zama life? I'd love to hear your views. If you enjoyed today's breakdown, please give this video a like, hit that subscribe button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Operation Vola Amgodi is a step in the right direction, or just a drop in the bucket? That's all from me for now. Thank you for tuning in, and as always, see you next time.